Welcome to episode 428 of AI Brief. I'm Amin.
And I'm Leah.
And we have a really intense deep dive for you today. Usually we are parsing through product launches or subtle model updates, but today the industry is just colliding head-on with geopolitics and hard power.
It really is. We are going beyond standard software updates to talk about a literal ultimatum from the Pentagon, plus models that are learning to use computers just by watching videos.
Right, and a massive shift in how the enterprise workforce is being automated from the top down. So let's lay out today's main points.
We've got three major stories up front. First, that confrontation between the Pentagon and Anthropic over Claude's safety guardrails. Second, Standard Intelligence launching an AI that learns to drive cars and use software entirely by watching pixels. And third, a huge update to Anthropic's co-work platform aimed straight at the Fortune 500.
And then in the back half, we'll get into a slew of other updates, including some striking news from Notion and Aura, before giving you a rundown of the top trending AI tools of the day.
So let's jump right into the new updates. We have to start with this Pentagon story because the language being used is unusually aggressive for this space.
It is. We are seeing words like ultimatum and blacklisting. So break down what is actually happening between Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Anthropic CEO.
It's a massive clash of cultures, but with incredibly high stakes. The Pentagon delivered a stark, direct ultimatum to Dario Amodei on Friday. The message was to remove specific military safeguards on the Claude model or face consequences that could genuinely threaten the company.
When you say threaten the company, are we just talking about a canceled government contract? Because, tech companies lose defense bids all the time.
This goes way beyond a standard lost contract. The ultimatum outlined three distinct scenarios. Option 1 is simple compliance. Anthropic removes the guardrails. Option 2 is severe punishment. The Pentagon would terminate their current $200 million deal and slap Anthropic with a supply chain risk label.
Which effectively acts as a government-wide blacklist.
Exactly. It would freeze them out of federal work entirely. But option 3 is the one making legal scholars panic. They threaten forced compliance using the Defense Production Act.
The Defense Production Act. That's a Truman-era law usually reserved for making car companies build ventilators during a pandemic or tanks during a war.
It's meant for industrial conscription during national emergencies. Invoking it here would be completely unprecedented. The government wouldn't be ordering physical goods. They would effectively be seizing control of a private company's intellectual property to force a change in the software's behavior.
They're basically treating the model weights like a critical munition. But Claude is already deployed in classified networks. What are the specific guardrails causing this standoff?
There are two very specific red lines that Amodei is refusing to cross. The first is autonomous weapons usage without a human in the loop. The second is the bulk surveillance of American citizens.
So the lines are essentially, do not pull the trigger without a human checking, and do not use this for mass domestic surveillance.
Correct. Anthropic built these in to prevent catastrophic errors. But the Pentagon's argument is that in a near-peer conflict, specifically regarding China, speed is everything. They see a human-in-the-loop requirement as a tactical vulnerability.
They view the safeguard as a fatal bug. And this isn't happening in a vacuum, right? Because competitors are making moves while Anthropic holds this line.
Absolutely. xAI's Grok just reportedly landed a deal by agreeing to a clause that simply says, for all lawful purposes.
Which is a brilliant legal sidestep. It just defers all the decision-making to the state's legal team.
It does. And with the Pentagon also fast-tracking OpenAI and Google for classified access, Anthropic is caught in a trap. If they stand their ground, they get replaced by models that will comply. If the DPA is invoked, they're forced to comply anyway.
It sets a massive precedent for how wartime legal threats might completely override the internal governance of these frontier labs. It shifts the power dynamic entirely.
It really signals that when push comes to shove, internal company limits only exist as long as they don't inconvenience national security.
Let's shift gears from the legal battlefield over to the digital one. Standard Intelligence just released FDM1. They're calling this a computer action model. How is this technically different from the agents we talk about every week?
The primary difference is the training data. Most agents out there are built on large language models. They read the text code of a website, the HTML or the DOM tree to figure out where a button is. FDM1 doesn't read code. It looks at the pixels.
So it is seeing the screen exactly the same way you or I see the screen?
Precisely. It learns purely by watching video. They trained it on 11 million hours of screen footage. It watches someone using an operating system, and it reverse engineers the exact mouse movements and keystrokes needed to make the next frame happen.
11 million hours. That's something like 1,200 years of video content.
It's about 550,000 times larger than the biggest open data set that existed before this. It's learning cause and effect in a visual environment, not relying on text-based logic.
I saw their demo, claiming it can drive a car. I initially thought that was just marketing spin. A model trained on computer screens is driving a physical vehicle?
It drove a real car through the streets of San Francisco. The model just treated the windshield view, and the dashboard camera feeds like another software window. It used the arrow keys to steer and accelerate. And the craziest part is it learned to do this with under an hour of specific driving data.
That implies an incredible level of generalized reasoning. It just understands that an obstacle means it needs to move left, whether it's in a video game or an actual sedan.
That is the real breakthrough here. It processes nearly 2 hours of continuous screen activity at once, which is about 50 times the visual context of existing models. It's moving from predicting the next word to predicting the next visual action.
If it learns to drive a car in under an hour, teaching it to navigate Salesforce or Excel must be practically instantaneous.
That is exactly the bet Standard Intelligence is making about the future of automation.
And speaking of Excel, that leads us directly into Anthropic's other major news today. They are doing a massive push into the enterprise with their co-work platform update.
It is a very aggressive expansion to compete directly with OpenAI's frontier. Anthropic wants Claude embedded in the actual daily workflows of the Fortune 500. They rolled out pre-built agents covering 10 specific departments.
So engineering, HR, banking, wealth management, these are highly specialized tools, not just generic chat interfaces.
Exactly. The core value here is integration. They built direct connectors for Gmail, DocuSign, FactSet, and Harvey.
Integrating into FactSet is huge. That is the absolute lifeblood of financial analysis.
And their new research preview shows exactly how disruptive that is. They demonstrated a capability where Claude hops back and forth between Excel and PowerPoint.
Anyone who has ever worked a corporate desk job knows the absolute misery of the Excel to deck pipeline.
It is the ultimate drudgery of the knowledge economy. This update lets Claude analyze the raw data in an Excel file, do the math, and then physically switch over to PowerPoint to build the charts and format the bullet points.
That brings massive efficiency, but it immediately raises a quality control issue. If the model hallucinates a single calculation in Excel, that error gets baked into a slide deck being presented to a board of directors.
Which is the exact risk they are trying to solve with private agent stores. Companies can deploy these agents with strict admin controls, limiting them only to internal audited data.
They really are trying to build the operating system for the entire white-collar workforce.
They are. Piece by piece, they are trying to automate the back office.
Let's transition to the next segment and take a slightly more measured look at everything else happening in AI today.
We can start with a fascinating update from Notion. They just announced the launch of fully autonomous custom agents, and the metric they shared is quite striking. They claim to now have more of these agents running than they have actual human employees.
That really is a profound shift in how we measure a company's workforce. These aren't just simple macros that run when you press a key.
No, these are designed to be always-on entities. They run 24/7 across tools like Slack, Figma, and email. They handle complex, multi-step workflows in the background without requiring a human to initiate the process.
Moving over to the health sector, Aura has introduced a highly specialized model.
Yes, the Aura Advisor. This is their first proprietary AI model, and it is built specifically for women's health. It takes the biometric data gathered from their Ring sleep patterns, cycle tracking, pregnancy data, and combines it with established medical research.
That level of personalization is valuable, as it moves away from generic advice to guidance based on your specific biometrics on any given morning.
Precisely. Next, we have a quality of life update from Anthropic for developers. They released a remote control feature for Claude. It allows users to hand off long-running terminal tasks directly to their phone or browser.
So if you have a compile or a model training run that takes hours, you're no longer tethered to your desk to monitor it.
Exactly. Over in the creative space, Google Labs has acquired Producer AI. They are integrating this technology into DeepMind's Lyria 3 model for text-to-music generation. The crucial detail here is that it allows for stem generation.
Which fundamentally changes the utility. Getting the bass, drums and vocals as separate tracks turns it from a novelty into a genuine production tool.
We also have a significant speed benchmark from Inception Labs. They launched Mercury 2, which is a diffusion-based reasoning model. It is currently clocking over 1,000 tokens per second.
In the race towards seamless real-time voice and video interaction, that kind of throughput is a major differentiator. Let's look at the infrastructure side. Meta just announced a major hardware deal.
Meta and AMD have finalized a multi-year deal for up to 6 gigawatts of GPUs. The scale of the power requirement alone is immense, but the strategic shift is the real story.
It signals a very clear move by Meta to diversify their supply chain so they are not entirely dependent on NVIDIA for their computing infrastructure.
Finally, for this segment, OpenAI has brought on a new executive. Arvin Casey has been hired as their new Chief People Officer, bringing experience from Roblox, Google, and Palantir.
Given the rapid growth and the organizational shifts OpenAI has experienced recently, stabilizing their internal culture is clearly a top priority.
It definitely is.
All right, let's bring the energy back up and transition to our final segment. We have a solid list of trending AI tools you should be looking at right now. What is leading the pack today?
Well, we already touched heavily on the biggest one, which is Claude Cowork. For enterprise users, the new team plugins and the deep integrations make it the top workflow automation tool right now.
And for individuals or teams trying to automate their daily administrative tasks, you have Notion Custom Agents.
Exactly. If you want always-on systems handling your project statuses and background workflows, that is the tool to explore. On the visual front, ByteDance just upgraded their AI image model with Seadream 5.0 Lite.
And there is also Revia v1.5 making waves.
Yes. The standout feature for Riv is its capability to output true 4K resolution text-to-image generations.
4K is rapidly becoming the baseline standard. Now, what about tools for building out a business infrastructure?
For that, you should look at Runner. It is an autonomous tool that actually builds, optimizes, and scales entire online stores from scratch.
And once you have that store built, you need to find customers, which brings us to Starness.
Starness operates like an autopilot for your sales pipeline. It is an automated tool designed specifically for finding and reaching out to new leads.
What if you have a software idea but you don't actually know how to code?
Then Anima is the platform you want. It allows you to build out full websites and applications starting from nothing but a basic design or a written idea.
And to round out the list, we have a tool for video generation.
Lunaire. It focuses on generating studio-quality explainer videos. So when you look at this entire list, you can essentially automate the design, the coding, the marketing, and the sales outreach all at once.
It really highlights this new paradigm where you just provide the initial intent and the synthetic stack handles all of the actual execution.
That is exactly where the industry is heading.
Well, that covers everything for today's deep dive. We went from the Pentagon, potentially seizing model weights, to AI systems learning to drive by watching video, to the tools completely automating the modern workday.
The overarching theme today really boils down to the total removal of friction, whether that friction is a safety guardrail in a military deployment or just the manual steps required to build a slide deck.
Which leaves you with a final thought to mull over. If the Pentagon is successful in forcing the removal of these safety guardrails for their own specific use cases, does a guardrail that can simply be turned off on demand actually exist at all? Once that off switch is engineered for one specific user, how long until it is found or forced open by everyone else?
Once you open that Pandora's box, it does not easily close again.
Something to carefully consider. If you found this deep dive valuable, please follow the show and share it with your network so we can keep bringing you these updates.
See you in the next episode.